All right, so let's talk a little bit about the sales tax setup page. And we've covered a little bit of this already when we talked about the nonprofit exemption. But on this page, it's going to do one other important thing for you, which is that it's going to select a taxability address. So we discussed that the taxability of your event is based upon the state in which the event is held. So the delivery of that service of someone being able to come to your event happens in the state where the event is being held. For us to accurately calculate sales tax, we need to know the address of the event. And so the address of that event sometimes is not a good address. It might be a stadium, it might be a park that doesn't have a good address. And so on the sales tax setup page, we ask you about the appropriate taxability address for your event. And if you have an event that's held in a place that does not have a good address, someplace that the post office can't deliver to, we ask you to select an address that's as close by to that as possible. And what that does is it allows us and Avalara on the back end to calculate the appropriate sales tax for that event, because sales tax can go all the way down to the local level, county and local level. And so we need to make sure that that address is close enough to your race that when we calculate and remit sales tax on your behalf, it's done with an accurate address. So that's what that taxability address is all about. In the sales tax setup menu, there's also a place where you can indicate that you have a different shipping address. This is used in some, but not all states. But basically the concept here is that if you are shipping from somewhere other than where the event is being held, you want to indicate that as your shipping address. And that has to do with different states that look at the destination or the origin of where goods are shipped from. This won't have a difference in every state, but if you are shipping from an address, which is quite common, that's different than the event address, then you want to indicate that here by checking this box. So talking about on the sales tax setup page, the general sales tax exemption, this will also tell you if generally there's a sales tax exemption that's available even if you're not a nonprofit organization for the types of sales that might occur for where your event is set up. This is not very common, but there are some instances where there might be a sales tax exemption that's unrelated to your status as a nonprofit organization. And then also the nonprofit, religious, educational, and government sales tax exemptions. So this is if you are a nonprofit organization. First off, you need to have set up your payment account that way. So the exemption reason will already check off the type of organization that you indicated that you were when you set up your payment account with us. And then those nonprofit organizations in many states have an exemption that's available to them as a seller in those states. This page will default to the state where your event is being held, but if you commonly have registrants or attendees that you ship goods to, you might want to check and take a look at some of the other states where you commonly ship goods to and see if there's an exemption in those states as well. At the bottom of this page, there's a place where you indicate that you have, this is basically your authorization, that you've looked over that exemption criteria, that you fully qualify for that exemption criteria, and this is where you're signing for the entity sending up the race, saying that you comply with that. And that's important. RunSignup is basically following your instructions not to collect sales tax on the sale for this based upon you having clicked or not clicked these buttons. So we want to know that someone has carefully considered that and has indicated their signature at the bottom that they'd carefully considered that and that they do comply with all the exemption criteria.